Kia ora whanau. Here's a Kings of War tournament report, reviewing 5 games that I've just played at Southcon in Dunedin, New Zealand, over the last weekend. So this tournament was 8 players, 5 rounds, 2.5 hours a round, roughly I think it was, 2,000 points, and using the Northern Kings scoring system. So that's win, draw, loss, plus skill points, plus scenario points. And that's quite a good system because it means no matter how badly done you're getting in a game, there's always something still to try and play for there. So I took my Orc army, which up until this point had not done very well. And it's quite a simple army, and I was determined to use some reasonably simple tactics with it too, which I'll come to. It's just 2 big hordes of axe heavy infantry, 2 regiments of gore riders, some chaff units in the skulk out riders like cavalry and orklings, a couple of war drums to boost morale, the nerve values, and then 4 quite powerful heroes. One with Gakmak's Bloody Banner, which allows the heavy infantry to charge an extra inch. Crusher there on a gore with a mace crushing. A slasher, wing slasher with the blade of slashing, Crudger on that. So that's the Wyvern, and Gakmak, who's the really quite powerful orc mounted hero. So what I thought I'd do in this video is do my best to do a bit of a Page Neo analysis to the extent I can. So Page Neo is a Kings of War player from Singapore who does a kind of learning points video where he tries to impart a bit of wisdom about some of the tactics and so on, and learning points from games. So I'll do my best to duplicate that sort of approach, not nearly as well I'm sure, but we'll see how we go. So the first game was against Nightstalkers, which are not an army I've played against or with before, so this was the first time. And these are part of the unique Mantic Kings of War IP. And as the background says, these are the Nightstalkers, the dreams, nightmares, fears, and horrors of mortals become manifest. So this is like an army of horrific monsters, really, and they have several abilities, one of which is they're stealthy, so they kind of sneak up on you, and then they're on you, and they do a lot of damage. The other thing is they don't have their own real inspiring leaders, rather they have something called mind thirst, so they benefit from their opponents' inspiring heroes, that they get their inspiring from them. So that's 2 points to them. Now, they're stealthy, so they're hard to hit with shooting. I don't have any shooting, well, not much, so I don't really care about that. And if they want to get in a fight, my orcs are very happy to do that. So let's see how it goes. So here's the setup. I had my Wyvern, all the cavalry here, except for one of the skulks way out on the side here, and the infantry in the center. And this was a tactic I planned to use throughout the tournament, really, just to see how it goes. And it's almost a historical sort of principle with an army like this, as much as you get historical armies like this, that you have a kind of anvil in the center with some solid infantry, a kind of a refused flank, and a strong wing of cavalry. And the idea in most games was to be that these would just kind of pin the enemy army in place and grind against them and damage them and maybe lose slowly, whereas all this cavalry and the Wyvern slasher there would be the thing that does the damage and breaks and gets behind the enemy army and so on. So that's the plan basically. The Nightstalkers, so here we have something called Soul Flayers, which is speed 10, and Shadow Hounds also speed 10, and then the rest of the army. So a fast wing here and some slower but very, very strong units here. I should just say the sun was streaming in at this time in the morning. So some of these pictures, it's a little bit harder than usual to see what's happening. You can see I got the first turn and moved up, so there was a wood here. I have no mitigation of that, so we're just slowing down, nothing to be done about that. And my wyvern, though, it flew straight up here and turned to face, so it's not in the charge arc of any of these dangerous things, but it's getting ready to pounce on things in the next turn. And in the center, this unit of axe advanced quite a bit, but these are actually holding back because there's some terrain here to use as a defense, expecting to lose against all this stuff coming through. So here's my second turn, and the Nightstalkers have advanced mainly on this flank over here. The Soul Flayers came over here, and what they're really wanting to do, so they're flying quite nasty, heavy cav, ghosty things. They're trying to get behind me, really. That'll be their ideal position. But the way I've moved up here, and I'm kind of figuring I'm going to get hit first and take quite heavy casualties from that, but I need to advance with this, and in each game this cavalry wing is going to get hit, but I'm hopeful it can kind of just smash its way through with heavy losses. And I've got this set up, so Gakamak here, he's an individual, so is this Crusher here, so they can charge 16 inches in any direction, which is really useful if you're facing something like this unit of Soul Flayers here. And it's positioned so that this can't really hit anything too dangerous. It's just going to go into the front of these units. Can't get into the flank of those Gore Riders. Can't get into my War Drum. So that's the setup there. The Slasher, which was about here, flew over here. And here's the first sort of point, a little mistake I made there really, which is that this should really be angled back rather than facing straight down the table like that, which limits the things that will be able to charge in its next turn. It should have really been facing more 45 degrees down this way, just so it could have some more options for charging things. But that's just a little, still learning what to do with this army, but I recognise that in the next turn. Just look at the right flank there. So the Orclings rushed forward into the forest to just try and slow things down. Of course, the Terror is coming through the forest, and it doesn't care. It's a forest. It's not going to help the Orclings survive. And these Skulks, they had raced up the side there, but now they're racing back again, realizing that they're not going to get round against those Reapers and other things. And I'll try and keep them alive for later. So yeah, and yep, and so advanced quite a bit with this unit, but this one's still sitting where it is. So here is the Nightstalker turn, and the Terror charges into the woods and attacks the Orclings, and surprisingly doesn't rout them in a single round, instead just wavers them. And in the center, the Bloodworms and Shadow Hulk charge into the Orc Axe Horde here, doing 14 damage and wavering them. Shadow Hounds into these Gores, doing 6 damage and wavering them too. And the Soul Flayers into the Skulks, doing 6 damage and wavering them also. So that's 3 of my units missing their next turn and in a bad way and shortly going to die, I imagine, or rout, as the term is. So The Soul Flayers, I mean, Justin here, he ummed and ahed about what to do with them. He was trying to get them into a better position where they could, be in a position to threaten flanks and so on. But these two characters, mounted characters with their charge of 16 in any direction, because they're individuals, that really made that there was no good place for them to go. So in the end, he decided to just throw them in to do some damage. Fair enough. My turn though, that did mean that I had a flank charge with the Gores into the Soul Flayers, and so they were taken out. Here, these Gores, look, I couldn't get anyone to help them, so getting another attack from the Shadow Hound, so that's going to be pleasant. And here they're wavered, so not much I can do there. In the background though, I mentioned my Wyvern Slasher last turn, which was over where that tape measure is. It because of the direction it was facing, it couldn't do a nice charge into any of this stuff. But there was the horror where my Wyvern is sitting, which got eaten. It had been bane chanting these bloodworms, which are already bad enough. But my Wyvern ate that and turned to face, ready to go into the back of this or threaten whatever was coming down this way. So it's actually a really good position for the Wyvern, just where you want a big flyer like that. So in the Nightstalkers' turn, going down the line, the Shadow Hounds attack these Gore Riders again, but actually fail to kill them and do just another 2 wounds, I think. These 2 units wipe out the Axe Horde. These units, because of where that Wyvern is, they have to kind of react to guard against it, so they can't just run forward here. So that really slows that advance down, and the Orclings are taken out. My turn though. So these Shadow Hounds, they only did another 2 damage, so they are hit and destroyed by these 2 Gore units this time around. The Shadow Hulk had wandered off this way, but really I just chuck absolutely everything I can into this Bloodworm Legion. Number 1, they're disgusting. Number 2, they do a lot of damage actually with they've got the Brewer's Strength on them as well, so I think they're like 330 points or something. Very expensive unit, but also very dangerous. So I just throw everything into them with the hope that I can kill it in 1 round. And if I don't kill them in 1 round, then the Skulks have kind of sacrificed themselves here to just slow down this stuff and get in the way. And however, we do it, and so there's the ends of that turn. We've managed to take out the Shadow Hounds, the Bloodworm Legion, and turn to face. It's actually in quite a good position there. So how do the Nightstalkers respond to that? The Shadow Hulk launches itself into those Gore Riders, the Planar Apparition to these ones. And a couple of units attack the Slasher there, and these advance. So here's the end of my turn though. Do lose a unit of Gore Riders to the Shadow Hulk, but eventually take that and the Planar Apparition out. The Reapers are also taken out, and this is what the situation is looking like, and really the Orcs have moved into control of the situation now. And I think this is the getting towards the end of the game. Yeah, so a fair bit of damage done to the Wyvern, but not enough to kill it. And the Nightstalkers had thrown most of the units into trying to kill it, but were in turn routed. And really quite critical was the Slasher, Crudger on the Wing Slasher, which got kind of behind the Nightstalkers line, and which into a position where it could threaten the flank or rear of units engaged over here, and also the same of units on the right. So that made the big difference. So here's the final turn, and there's the terror with Justin just trying to work out what to do with it against such a terrifying outnumbering situation that it finds itself in. So that was it really. So some learning points. I've already mentioned one of them, which was with my slasher, when it flew over here, it should have angled this way a bit more so it had more targets. You know, ended up just having to get to there. I already mentioned that one. So you're just thinking about your facing a little bit more, spending an extra half second to consider things. That's a good idea. But another one Justin realised here was when he saw that slasher there really kind of steaming over here. I mean, he's got reserves in the second line here, which could have and should have like those two units at the back. They could have faced towards this thing, so when it actually did come flying over, they could charge it, which would have stopped it turning around so gung-ho like that. And not only would it, even if it turns to face them, I mean, it's still going to get charged by 2 units. And but as it turned out, because he didn't do that, this thing it's threatening the rear of there. These things can't advance because it will hit them in the rear. So he was kind of stuck with that, and he could have prevented it by just turning those. So here's this Soul Flayer attack into the Skulk Outriders, which wavered them. And I guess the question there is what else could be done there? I mean, they're guarding the flank of them, so that's one purpose of doing it. But if we go back here, I mean, my Skulk's on the other flank, just sort of thinking it was hard to get round, and so rather than throwing them in, I just brought them back and thought, well, maybe I'll try and wait until there's a better chance to use them, and I wonder if that could have been better for these. I mean, maybe not. But also that was putting them in a position where if they don't kill them, then they're going to be flanked and killed there. You know, a high chance of that anyway. So the question is, well, what's the chance of them actually winning that fight? And I mean, there's no substitute for just playing lots of games, and you just kind of get a feel for how a unit's going to do in various situations, kind of like a gut instinct, and that's the best way to do things. However, a bit of a check on that if you don't really have much idea, or you're just trying to get a sense for how things might go, so you can use one of the Mathhammer tools. So if we go to here, this is Tactical War Games. If you just Google Tactical War Games World Kings of War, you'll find this site. And of course you have your list builders here for Kings of War. You can do tournaments and submit things in tournaments. But it also has this Mathhammer thing for various games. So Kings of War, so you have a look here, you can just copy the stats of units and see what the likelihood of various things are. And what you do is you put in the stats of the attacking unit, defending unit, and what direction they're charging from and so on. And you get kind of likelihood of various results happening. So if you look at these Soul Flayers, Justin has got melee 3, 12 attacks, crush 1, thunderous 1. So if we put those stats in here, 12 attacks, 3, melee 3, crush, thunderous 1 each. And there's my Skulks defensive stats, defense 3, waver 10, rout 12. And that they were in a position where they're inspired, so they have another hero nearby. So if you rout them, you have to roll again. So if you look at the results there, here's your odds that on average you do 6.67 wounds. So in with that you'll need to waver them by rolling 4+ on 2 dice, and you have to roll that twice. or to route them 6+ on 2 dice twice. So you have about a 50% chance of routing them, 30% chance of wavering them, and 18% chance of them holding. So Justin going there, he had about a 50-50 chance of just killing them outright and being able to turn to face rather than getting flank charged, which would at least help him last a bit longer. But these were not just 10-12. They had the war drum nearby there. So that war drum was giving them +2 to their waver and nerve value. So that was in fact not 10, it was 12, and that was 14. So they're up to 12, 14 inspired. And what does that look like? Considerably worse. So your chance now of killing them straight out is only 17%, 35% chance of wavering them, and close to 50% chance that they hold and are fine. So they were wavered. But yeah, that's a, I guess, a learning point against Orcs. Yes, it is just a light cavalry unit. I mean, it's pretty easy to kill. But in the Orc army, if they've got a war drum nearby, it makes a significant difference. That's not to say that Justin made the wrong choice there. It's just a little thing to thought I'd just throw that in there as a little something to think about. Okay, so that's the end of the first game, and I'll just quickly say about that Mathhammer bit there. I think some people get a bit carried away with that, thinking they can work everything out in the game, you know, just kind of scientifically analysing and everything. I don't think that's the case. I think it's mainly useful just to, if you just maybe question some of your assumptions about how your units should be doing in the game. If you think, you know, it should be beating this unit, or it should be holding up longer against this unit or something. Maybe just, if that doesn't seem to be the case, you can just check and go, oh, that's about what the odds are. Remembering that it is a range of results. Some people this is a big common issue with it, is people look at the average and kind of expect that they're entitled to that. That's not the case at all. You can do much worse than that, much better, and you will do so across multiple games, and you need to just keep that in mind. Expect the worst, hope for the best, and look at the payoffs. You know, if so, I probably won't win here, but if we do get a big win, it'll sort of, you know, really put the opponent into a really difficult situation. So it might be worth doing, even though it's against the odds. Whereas, even if there's a low probability of you failing at something, if you do fail and it's going to have a really big bad effect, then maybe you don't do it. So you've got to think about that sort of thing. But really, you know, I've been playing these things for decades now, and this Mathhammer thing started with Warhammer about 2010 with the internet, and it's a bit of a gimmick, really. It's kind of interesting just to see what the odds are and be able to easily calculate it. But really, it's playing lots of games, and you get a sense, you know, this hero, he's really tough and he's going to do some damage, or this unit, you know, you need to be really careful with them and at least stay away from that giant and that sort of thing, and you get more of a sense of the kind of personality of a unit. And also, it's just fun to try out different things with these units and just learn as you do so. It's quite enjoyable, and as you do that and play different opponents and the same opponents, units get this personality and bit of a reputation, both to yourself and other people, and that together with you know, all the effort you put into the painting and modelling and so on, creates this sort of story and personality, like I say, and that's a big part of the enjoyment and the sort of mathematical calculations and things, muchly so. And I think, you know, if you really are super into the maths, this probably isn't for you, because, you know, well, there's all this painting and modelling involved, but also that maths can just be ruined straight away by a double 1 or a double 6 or something. So if you want something with more precision and certainty, then you probably want to be looking at chess or Go or something like that, not Kings of War. Game 2 versus Jeff's Ogres. So Jeff has big horde of shooters, 2 siege breaker units. One interestingly has the fireball, diadem, or dragonkind item. 3 chaff units with red goblin scouts, 2 units of warrior chariots, 2 ogre warlocks, standard one and mega rock, and Grokagomok, the big ogre warlord. So last scenario was just the kill. We're just trying to take out as many of the enemy as possible. This one is plunder. So there are 5 loot tokens which you can capture and carry away across the center of the board there. And whoever has the most at the end wins. 3 of them, I think that one, and that one were the 1-point ones, and those 2 were the primary ones worth 2 each. So deployment, I have my infantry center here again. My Gore Riders, Wyvern and Gaka Mac are out there, and I've got a Skulk Outrider unit out to the left there. There he is. So they are just hiding, skulking behind this building, kind of hidden from view at the moment. I think the Ogres had the first turn and they've rushed up their Scout Riders there, the Goblin Scouts. There they are, quite nice models. I think, yeah, they're the Mantic ones. And there's the loot token, also a Mantic one. And here's the shooters in the Ogre line. That's the named wizard Nomi, we turn him for short, and Gokamarok, that's the Ogre Warlord. So most of these are Mantic models, not all of them. Siege Breakers, Ogre Chariots. Yeah, and here's my wing over here with pushing up with the Gore Riders and the Slasher, obviously. And the positioning here is, if we just go back here, you can see I'm just checking a few things, like making sure there's the arc templates down, just to make sure I'm not going to get any nasty charges from these chariots. So just making sure we're out of arc of those chariots there, which have the Brewer Haste on them, so they can charge up to 18. So, of course, it would be disastrous to get hit in the flank by that, but they're out. They will take frontal charges, but like I said, my plan is just try and smash through with all this, take heavy casualties, but it's kind of unavoidable. So on the left here, here's just a little minor learning point, I guess, with these skulks. So the idea of having them out here, this is kind of historical too, in terms of tactics with light cavalry, is that it can go either way very quickly with light cavalry. They're quite fragile, and it's a bit of a crapshoot who's going to win. So his goblins are faster, but my orcs and his ones, actually, they don't have bows, so mine have bows, but mine have crushing strength. And his move faster. So what I do is I advance just using this building for cover, so both units won't be able to charge me. So in Kings of War, you measure line of sight to see if you can shoot or charge from your leader point, i.e. the leader of your unit. So he has to be able, from that point, to see the enemy unit to shoot it or charge it. So by moving to here, I got off some shots at the first unit and got lucky and took it out. Did 1 or 2 wounds and rolled high. And also that meant I was in a position where the leader of the goblins can't actually see my unit, so they can't be charged. So this puts the Goblin leader of that unit there in a difficult position, he can either come forward around this way to get in position to charge me, but that'll mean that I could shoot him or charge him, which isn't great, or I guess he can run away, but that risks me just chasing after them, shooting. What they'd really like, I guess, is for the Ogre Warlock over here to blast them. That would solve the problem. Okay. Now on the right, it's gone according to plan. So the Ogre Chariots came in and smashed one of the Gore Rider units together with these Goblin Scouts. But then the Warrior Chariots were in turn smashed by the other Gore Rider unit and Gakamak, while the War Drum wavered the Goblin Scouts. And the Wyvern Slasher flew across and actually managed by itself to take out the other Warrior Chariot Regiment, which was a pretty good effort. So that the flank of the Ogre army is open. So here's the situation. I think this is the Ogre turn 3 probably. So I've thrown the Crusher into the Shooter Horde just to stop their shooting for a round. You'll notice the 17 damage on the Orc Horde there, so they're about to go. And here Jeff is just trying to work out what to do, and a bit of a mistake there. He's left a gap for the where the slasher can actually fly over the top of those siege breakers and hit the flank of those siege breakers there. So that will be bad for them. And indeed, that is what happens. The Crusher there is killed, and the slasher takes out that siege breaker horde in a round. You see the Orclings there just charging in to hit the flank of the siege breakers and just annoy them really. Over on the left flank too, I got lucky and my Skulks charged and took out the other Goblin Scout unit. So and Jeff really, he had the advantage there of numbers and speed, but unfortunately with the positioning was unable to use it particularly well. So I managed to get a bit lucky there and take out 2 units with them. Just look at the Orcs. And so the next turn or two, yeah, the siege breakers were taken out by this horde. Eventually, the slasher continued its destruction, taking out the shooters. Gakamak's come over, he's taking on Namakarok and Gromokarok. I think Jeff, fair enough, he decided he's just going to charge into this horde and hope he does an enormous number of wounds, because of course he has the blast rule. Gromokarok, he's got can potentially do up to 18 damage, though I think the average is about 10 or something maybe. He's so anyway, he rolled, and what did he get? Yeah, he did about 10 damage. Not enough to take them out, but he was going for some last victory points there. Well, victory points and revenge, and fair enough. So that was the end of the game, and it was a pretty solid victory to the Orcs, getting all the loot tokens, and also doing a lot of killing everything except Namakarok and Gorokamarok, the 2 named ogre characters. So Jeff did manage to take out one of these hordes of Orcs and a unit of Orclings, and both my Orc Gore Rider units. One of them was taken out by the Chariots, second turn, and the other one about turn 4 by the Shooter unit. A key issue too, I think, that really helped my cause was his warrior chariot regiments, for example, and the scouts on the other side, but mainly the chariots. They didn't have an inspiring character near them, so I only had to roll once rather than twice, and that makes quite a big difference to how likely they are to rout in combat. So if you can, definitely try and have inspiring characters around to give you that reroll. And once again, the plan with the Orcs worked pretty well with the mounted wing, smashing the opposition in front of it, and coming around to clean up from the flank. And I think, as Jeff said, he was a bit rusty with a few of the things in this game, but it's good to see him along and getting back into it. And he's got a very nicely painted army, though. He said it's still a fair bit of work to do on it, apparently. So yeah, it looked very nice anyway. Game 3 versus Eugene's Goblins, and looking at this, I thought this was quite a scary list for my Orcs. It has a lot of shooting with the rock throwers and the war trombones. Just has a lot of units to just kind of get in the way and slow things down while they're shot to death. Only 2 inspiring characters there. There's the super cheap Goblin standard bearers to provide the inspiring, and that's fine for Goblins. A couple of giants in there too. And also Eugene. I know Eugene's quite an experienced, confident player of various systems. I did have a chance here in that he was a bit rusty on Kings of War, as he said. It's been difficult to get everyone along to a tournament in Dunedin due to just other commitments not aligning in terms of dates with work and family schedules, as can happen. But it was good to have someone along to this tournament. So here's the setup, and scenario is Salt the Earth. So that's the one where you've got the counters scattered around. I think there's one there. And the objective of this mission is to hold as many of those as you can, except the little point to note in this one is that if you control one of these tokens, at the end of your turn, you can burn it, just destroy it, remove it from the game, except that one in the middle there. So you have the potential to grab a token, realize you won't be able to hold it against the enemy, so you just burn it and deny it to them. And with my setup here, that's fully what I intend to do versus this big horde of goblins. So I've got my skulks here ready to race up, grab that one if they can, burn it straight away, while I concentrate on the left over here. So I've got my Gore Riders there, another unit there, the Slasher. And yeah, and I just don't like what I'm facing here, really. There's a Goblin Chariot Legion over there, some big hordes of goblins, and all this shooting, and a couple of giants as well, more cavalry, troll regiments. It's quite unpleasant. And Eugene, he's an old Warhammer player from back in the day with, he's got a big collection of models. I actually played him in a Warhammer Fantasy Battle 6th edition tournament last December, I think, nostalgia tournament. And but anyway, he's based up a bunch of his old Games Workshop Goblins for this army, bit of kit bashing, a few Mantic models in there, a few other Rangers, and you can see he's multi-based these up. So this is, I think, the start of the Goblin second turn. So in the first turn, the Goblins had advanced, especially there and over here, and that they opened up with their shooting, and I think they did 7 damage to that Gore Rider unit. Unfortunately, didn't kill it. And in response, it just was not a great situation. I thought, I'm just going to get shot to death here. I've just got to go for it. So whack into this flank here. My Gore Riders took out the first Goblin unit, and then Eugene charged with the trolls. The Slasher situation was particularly bad because it's had to charge the giant if it was going to charge anything really, which meant and a giant gets an extra d6 attacks against big things like wyverns, so that's really going to hurt, and it's going to hurt even more than that because it's getting flanked by some trolls there too, just awful. But that's kind of how bad it was. It was, get stuck in, do as much damage as you can, or you're just going to be taken out by, all the shooting. My Crusher, I thought he'd sacrifice himself there and just charge straight into that giant. But actually ended up living and charging on to fight another day somewhere else. And the giant just wandered past. Over here, the Skulks, one of them ran up, burned that token, and is now being charged by Goblins, and they'll be taken out. Other Skulks decided to head back this way. So here's the end of Goblin turn 2, and as you can see, it's just tons of damage mounting up. These Gore Riders hit by the Trolls after they'd already been hit by the Catapults in the first turn, so they're up to 13 damage. Wavered, 10 damage on the Slasher from both the Giant and the Trolls hitting it in the side. It's fortunate not to die, really. It's another view of the same thing. And look at the battlefield in general. So the Wolf Riders here killed the Skulks and aimed to come around, though I end up charging them in the flank with the Orclings to slow them down a bit. Maybe kill them if I get lucky, which I don't. The Giant here swung and missed at the Crusher. Only did 2 damage to it, so the Crusher actually is fine, luckily. So my second turn here, attacking back against the Giant with the Slasher, so that's up to 9 damage. That's taking quite a beating. My other Gore Riders came in, hit the flank of the Trolls, killed them. And Gakamak and the Crusher take out the War Trombones. So War Trombones, they're short shooting, but they've got a lot of attack, so they're quite nasty. So another little tactical point here is, so Gakamak and the Crusher, they took out those War Trombones, and they did that rather than charging catapults, because the catapults, for other reasons, the catapults have a rule called indirect fire, which means, in addition to anything else, that they can't shoot at enemy within 12 inches, which is those 2 characters. So that's a tactic to use. If you can get inside that 12-inch distance, they can't shoot you. They can still, of course, shoot other units like these Gore Riders, but I have a cunning plan there too, which is hope they miss. End of Goblin turn 3, and the Giant kills the Slasher. The Trolls kill the Gore Riders, and the Giant comes in here and swings and does 5 damage to this Orc horde. And actually, I'm not too worried about that. A big horde of Orcs, sure they'll take a fair bit of damage from a Giant, but actually a Giant is something they're happy to go toe to toe with and get stuck in with their axes, so I'm fine with that. In here, this is an interesting one. The Chariot Legion, they actually came racing through and charged my Crudger, who was kind of sticking out a bit in front with his banner, but gung-ho and glorious. And so you don't double attacks for hitting characters in the side. There's only so many guys that can attack a character. But he took 6 damage from this charge, and there's a war drum there, so he lives. And I think I didn't actually check this with Eugene, but I think he was kind of expecting that if he would overrun that character, and he'd actually, because of what the space was, he would actually be able to hit overrun and go into the side of this horde. I think that's what his plan was, but actually some characters, including Orc Crudgers, which is the more powerful sort of Orc character, have the Mighty ability. So you can overrun characters without that, but if they've got Mighty ability, you can't overrun them. So I'm not sure what he was thinking. I mean, he may have just been thinking, I don't know what he was thinking, but anyway, he survived, so that's bad for those chariots. They're going to get hit in the flank by this horde. It's interesting to see these chariots. They seem to be some commandeered ones by goblins using horses. That's cool. All right. So here we are with my turn 3, and Gakamak and Wardrum attack and finish off this giant that had been quite badly wounded by the slasher. The Gore Riders charge down a catapult, as does the Crusher, to take out that shooting into the side of this Chariot Legion, and the Crudger also attacks them, and they're taken out, not surprisingly. If I swing back, and I think we did a few more damage to this giant as well. Out on the side here, the Orclings were finished off by the Wolf Riders. And yeah, here's Gakamak and the War Drum just doing enough to take out the giants. There's the trolls there. So that's the situation at the end of my turn. So a few damage to the giant, but not enough. And so here's the situation at the end of turn 5, I think it was. And at this point, Eugene suggested, and I accepted, that we just call it there because it was kind of obvious what was going to happen. So I've taken out all the war engines, or I'm about to. I've wrapped up this flank. The Skull's got a flank charge into the trolls. It failed to kill the War Drum there, and so the Goblins have this flagger, this unit here, these Goblins, and so they're going to get one objective. These things are just going to run away and not be. I won't be able to catch them in time, in all likelihood, and I'll have these objectives, and we could have just moved the figures around some more, but we thought let's just call it there and let's go to the pub at the end of the day one. So there we go. So some thoughts on this game. As Eugene said, I did exactly the right thing, which is to just charge into him as quickly as possible, because the more I delay and agonize about it, the more shooting I was going to take, and the worse situation I'd be in. And even though, I mean, charging a slasher against a giant, which is, gets an extra d6 attacks against the slasher, and the slasher is in a position to get hit in the flank by the trolls. I mean, that's a terrible position to be in for a slasher, but the alternative was keep hiding, do nothing, or fly to a position where it's potentially getting hit by 3 catapults, 2 war trombones. There was no good option, and that was maybe the least terrible one. And so I lost my slasher, but it did some damage and got there in the end. I think also Eugene, as I said, he's slightly rusty on a few things, which made a little bit of a difference there, like that Chariot Legion charge, perhaps not doing as well as he had hoped, and so there was the mighty thing there, but also, I mean, Goblin Chariot Legions, if you're going to survive against any Chariot Legion, it's going to be a Goblin one. They're just, they're not as powerful as other ones, obviously, being Goblins. Having said all that, this game could have very easily gone to Eugene, and I fully expect that to be the case in the near future when we meet up again. Game 4 versus Craig's Elves. So I thought this was kind of funny. Craig, leading up to this tournament, he had played 30 games with his Ogres, and but just before the tournament he finished painting up his Elves. He played a couple of games, but he thought it would bring them along, so he's used to his Ogres, but he's going with the Elves, and good on him. It's a good way to do things. Learn something, that's for sure. So his Elves, he had a couple of regiments of Palace Guard, which are very good close combat units. Tyrrhenian Sea Guards, which is like a mixed unit of I think spearmen and archers, or spear who have bows or something. Silveries Cavalry, that's the light cavalry with bows. Stormwinds Quicksilver Lancers, that's a nimble heavy cavalry unit. Drakon Riders, so the mini dragons. Elven King on a horse, 2 Elven Archmages with Lightning Bolt, 5 and 2 Lords on Drakons, which are the mini dragons. One with also got the Lightning Bolt item. So here's the setup and scenario, and the scenario was Smoke and Mirrors. So this is the one where you've got the bluff tokens, the hidden tokens. You don't know what they are, but you have 5 of them that you put in the enemy's half of the table. So I think those ones are mine there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're labelled 0, 0, 1, 1, 2. So 2 1s, a 2, and 2 zeros. And Craig the same on my half of the table. In every round, you're allowed to flip over one of the tokens that the enemy's placed in your half of the table to see what it is. So where the objectives is gradually emerges, and you have some sort of control over which ones you reveal. But you're starting out and not knowing where the objectives are in your half of the table. But I do know where I've put mine. I've put them there. That's the 2, the 1, the 1. So you can see my setup is I'm going to try and grab those and hopefully work out how to contest some of the ones the elves have put down. So the elves have the Quicksilver Lancers, Drakon Lord, there's the Sea Guards, the Palace Guard and Mages, the Drakon Horde, the King, Silver Breeze, another Drakon. And me, all my cavalry and the Wyvern again over here. Here's the X-Hordes. And over in the corner, being really sneaky, here's my skulks behind a building again. That's one of my favourite things to do with them, just skulking. And the idea with that, of course, here is similar to what I did in Game 2 versus the Goblins. If they come swinging around here, they really need to deal with these, otherwise they could charge them in the rear or something. And I'm under no illusions that the elves can deal with my skulks, but it will take them some time to do that. So Craig's elves, he just painted and done a nice job on them and the basing and so on. So it's a mix of ranges. All the Drakons, these are the new Mantic ones, nice models. Plus he's got a range of the Lord of the Rings figures from Games Workshop, and a few things from Fireforge games and other places in there as well, I think. So here's the first turn, which I win, and I start pushing up with my units. And so you'll notice that Gore Rider's there, and being a bit cautious here with the Slasher, who's just poking his nose out from the building here. And part of the reason for that is the shooting attacks from these. If half your base is obscured, you know, the edge you're shooting at, it does get cover, -1 to hit. So that's what's going on there. You'll notice this very heroic Crusher charging way down there, and just pretty brave. And I'm hoping Craig doesn't realise how dangerous this actually is. Because if this can charge one of these flying units in particular, but even the Silver Breeze, and do some damage, then it disorders that enemy, which means the Drakons can't fly for a turn, so they can't just ignore it and fly, they actually have to fight back. So that's what I'm hoping to do, just to pin one of them units for a turn. I mean, it'll be the death of the Crusher, but I'm quite prepared to sacrifice him in that heroic fashion. Here's an Orc after all. So here is how Craig responds, and I'm glad to see that he did just ignore the Crusher, which means I'll have the option to do what I want with him next turn, and the rest of them just come up here and start pinging away at things. In particular, he's trying to snipe my war drums out, so that will drop my morale. He does, I think, 3 damage there. And does he damage the other one over here as well? Perhaps. But anyway, they live so far. So my second turn, and I get to do what I want to do. The Crusher throws himself into the Drakon horde and does a point of damage or two, and which means they will actually have to fight back and kill him rather than flying off somewhere else and causing trouble. I throw the Orclings out front in a similar sort of sacrificial way, just to get in the way of charges from the enemy. Up come the Gore Riders to support, and here we have the Slasher charges the Elven King who'd come out, and Gakamat's up beside him. So here's this situation. You can see the Elven King is taking 8 damage from the Slasher and is wavered. Now let's look at it from this direction just to show some little minor tactics and learning points here about what I've done. So obviously I'm just trying to slow down the Drakons by grounding them for a turn, which is what you do if you do a point of damage to them in melee. They lose their fly ability for a turn, so that's what the Crusher did. But here, the Slasher's gone in here. Now the trouble is, that would mean if Gakamak wasn't there, then there would be a double flank charge from those 2 units into the side of the Slasher, and I mean Elves are pretty good, very likely to actually kill him or come close to it if they got that charge. So Gakamak's moved up there so that only one of them will be able to fit in the side there if they do it, and Gakamak himself, he's an individual, so they won't be doubling attacks against him. And so he could take a lot of damage, but I think it's probably worth it. So here then is the second turn from the Elves, and actually Craig does a really good move here that I was not expecting, and that is the Silver Breeze Cavalry and the Drakon Lord nimble cav, so they turn, run through here, turn again, and charge through the gap and hit my Gore Riders, as does the Drakon Lord, just flies straight over. And they do 7 damage to these Gore Riders, which is, I'm not sure how average that is, but in any case, these Gore Riders did not have an inspiring character near them, they did not have a war drum near them, so they're only 13-15. So Craig needed to roll there an 8 to take them out, and he didn't do it. They were okay, but had he done so, these 2 units would be behind me in my rear, and that could cause a real problem. It was a good move, didn't pay off in the end, but it was quite a nice move. The Drakons kill the Crusher, not surprisingly, but he has held them up for a turn. The Palace Guard shoot my Skulks, 6 damage, and the Archmages again try and take out my War Drum, but unsuccessfully. And what's happening over on this flank? Well, basically the Skulks are causing a disproportionate amount of trouble. They inflict a point of damage with their archery on this Drakon Lord, and the Drakon Lord is trying to hunt them down, and eventually they're kind of trapped in this position. Next turn the Drakon's just going to ride up there behind them and trap them against there, and then eat them the next round. But that's okay, they've kind of done their job. And I think this is a big mistake Craig made here actually. These Quicksilver Lancers, they come around here, and they really should have been moving as quickly as possible to threaten my flank, I think. Instead, these were some tokens. That there was a 2 there and a 1 there, which he was keen to contest, but at this stage of the game, he really needed these powerful units to be threatening my flank, and they were not doing that. And that was something Craig realised and commented on later. So my turn, and so a bunch of units come charging into this attack here. One of the War Drums goes into the side of them, and Gakamak does as well. And the Gore Riders charge the Drakon Lord. The other Gore Riders charge and finish off the Elven King. This huge horde of Orcs charges in and gets a little bit lucky, but also manages to kill that Drakon horde. and the slasher from there still able to fly, and does so, and races over here and smashes into the side of that palace guard, and that's not something they can withstand, and down they go. Meanwhile, the Orclings and the Crudger with the banner, they engage the two Elven Wizards and don't kill them, but do cause damage to them, which will stop them casting magic next turn. Just look there at the situation on the flank, and the slasher charging into the side of the poor old palace guard, and I take the opportunity to rush up with these orcs as well towards the sea guard on the left flank, and you see there I'm just checking that they're not going to get flank charged in the next turn by these cavalry. So that's what it looks like at the end of my turn, and as you can see, the elves are in a lot of trouble already. These turning rounds, these are going to be surrounded. This flank's caving in with the slasher, so it's not looking good for the elves. So the Draconlord did finish off the unit of Gore Riders here, but it's just a temporary solution because these units are surrounded and they've got Orclings and War Drums and more Gore Riders coming in to finish them off, which is what happens, though it's a bit slow and painful. Over here, the Sea Guard and the remaining Palace Guard Regiment do a big charge into my Horde of Orcs, do 11 damage, but not quite enough to kill them. And in response, I charge into the flank of the Palace Guards with the Crudger and Slasher and take them out. Finish off these wizards over here. And the surprising thing is these orcs one-shot the Sea Guard, just a single round of combat from the orcs, and they rout the Sea Guard. And actually, I say we finished off the wizards that round. The Orclings didn't quite do the job. I mean, they struggle to kill anything, but so the wizards still holding on against them temporarily until the orcs arrive. But as you can see, these managed, having finished off the infantry, they turn around to face the attack of the Silverbreeze cavalry. Well, not Silverbreeze, Stormwind. And here's the unfortunate last stand of the Elves over on the right. And the War Drums getting stuck in. So the Silverbreeze are gone here. The Draconlords on his last legs. And this is the situation. So the Stormwind cavalry charge in and do take out that Orc horde because they've already taken 11 damage. But then they are in turn killed off by the Slasher and Gakamak and the Crudger with the banner, I think. So it comes down to this little situation here. This is all the elves have left. A Draconlord sitting on a 2-point counter. I charge it with my Skulks, who are the only unit who can get there. They don't kill the Draconlords, but they do contest that token. So, once again, a very comprehensive victory to the Orcs in this game, and hopefully Craig learns a thing or two about, which is Elves, but about Orcs. And so yeah, grabbing most of the tokens. Craig didn't get any tokens because that one's contested, and the kill point total was a lot in my favour also. So learning points from this game, I guess the first thing is if you have flyers, just watch out for something which can attack them and ground them for a turn. So if you take damage in melee, you won't be able to fly in your next turn, which means you can't just disengage and fly off and attack something else. So those these mounted heroes, or any hero really, which can attack you, provided it's got to be, if it's just a really weak hero, it'll just bounce off you probably. So it needs to be something that can reasonably reliably damage a flying unit to ground it. But an Orc hero is that's the sort of thing they live for. And the other thing, of course, here is Craig did a really good move there with his nimble cavalry and flying thing into the middle of my lines where I did not have my Gore Rider units in drum range or character range to be inspired. So he could have actually got behind me and caused some trouble there. And watch out for getting charged in the flank by a slasher or any big dragon thing. Goes without saying. Easier said than done sometimes, of course. Anyway, Craig's painting up a really nice looking army, and I know he's already adding more units to it, and he'll get good with it. The last game I played, he was using his Ogres, and he beat me with them. So I imagine that'll happen with Elves as well before too long. So last game, number 5, is Gordon's Kingdoms of Men. And looking at this list, I did not feel confident. So, as Gordon says, you like to take armies that just go straight up there and twat things, which I kind of do. It's not a big horde of orcs and dragons and things like that. But Gordon, as he says, he likes armies which are a bit more finesse or tricky to use. So it's a bit of a challenge for him. And he's probably our most experienced player of Kings of War in New Zealand, I'd say, been playing it the longest. And this is very much the sort of army that fits into that category for him. So what does he have? He has a shield wall, just standard human infantry regiment, 3 pike phalanxes regiments, which I'm worried about because they can neutralize my slasher and cavalry units. 3 fanatics regiments, which the closest thing he has to hammers apart from the winged beast heroes down here. But there's still nothing in this army frontally is that scary. The problem is the combination of things he can do with it. He has 6 mounted heroes in the list. 3 of them are wizards, who, what can they do? They can cast a lightning bolt, each of them. One of them has Veil of Shadows in case he runs up against a enemy shooting army, I guess. He has Bane Chant on one of them to increase the combat power of something. He cast that on. One of them has the Inspiring Talisman to be another inspiring source. So their job is to, number one, use their spells to disrupt and annoy the enemy, but also they tend to sacrifice themselves at moments of extreme need by throwing themselves in front of something that he really needs to stop for a turn. So that's what you'll see him do in this game. And lastly, the real hammers here are these generals on winged beasts. So mounted heroes. They've got 7 attacks each. They're flying, crushed 2, thunderous 1. So if they get into your flank or rear, even worse, then they will absolutely wreck things. So that's and there's 3 of them. So it's a real worry how to deal with them, and just the numbers and how they can work in combination. So all that apprehension I had about this army was made worse by the scenario. So it's the control scenario, which is the one probably my orcs hate the most, or maybe not. But it's where the border's in 6 sections, 6 2-foot sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So each of these 2-foot sections, at the end of the game, whoever's the most unit strength in that section claims it and wins it. And whoever has the most points for number of sections they control at the end of the game wins. And they're all worth 1 point except for the opponent's central section, so that's worth 2 points if I control that one, and this section here is worth 2 points if Gordon controls it. So Gordon's going second, so that's not great, so he'll get the last decision about where his units end up. Plus, of course, he's got all these flyers and lots of units, so he's more manoeuvrable probably in being able to get to where he wants to go at the end. Now, another interesting twist on this, though, is that I've just had 4 very good wins. Gordon has had 3 wins and a loss. And as the TO said to us, I was 17 points ahead of Gordon, and can get a maximum of 25 points in a game. So to actually win this and win the tournament, Gordon really had to absolutely thrash me, pretty much play the perfect game. And to absolutely thrash someone with the sort of army he's got is quite a tall order to start off with. I did briefly toy with the idea of, well, maybe I should just castle in the corner, just get my units and form up here and let him come towards me and just try and hold out so he can't kill enough, and I can just hold on and he can't get enough points and I'll win the tournament that way. I decided against that for several reasons. Number one, well, I don't know if it would actually work. you might still be able to get me even if I did that. And secondly, it's not something I'd ever done before. It didn't seem particularly fun, and I'd rather just try and actually wreck his army as much as I could in the usual way I know how. So you'll see, here we go, infantry centre, the cavalry wing, stick with what you know and give it the best go. So that's what we're going to do. So over on the right flank, here's the 3 winged heroes, flying heroes, and so they're the real dangerous hammer I've got to watch out for. There's a fanatic unit there. And over on the left flank, he's got the shield wall, he's got 2 pike regiments, there's another fanatic unit, and a couple of the wizards. These are just the magic item cards next to the wizards to remind him. So first turn, what do, I advance in the centre a bit, just standard move forwards, using this building to guard the flank of them a bit, and push strong on this wing, as you might expect. So the slasher comes right up here, and turns a bit, so it is in charge range of, I think, that unit, maybe that unit as well. But I think I've got to be aggressive here, so forward we come. So men's turn, and you can see the first heroes here come racing up using this building for cover, and they're really aiming to get behind me as quickly as they can and start causing havoc, as I would. And the other infantry also advancing towards this weaker wing of my army. And over here, this is the end of my second turn. He charged the shield wall into the wyvern, so that into the slasher, so that grounded it, did 3 damage, I think. I moved the gore riders up and rotated them. And this is my first mistake. There will be several, but these, I thought, well, I'll protect their flank there and I'll come forward. And the mistake I made here is I got a bit too close. So the berserkers, so they're all speed 5, all these units. The berserker units, fanatic units, they've got wild charge D3, so they're going to charge 10 plus D3. They can only charge 10 though, the pike block. And stupidly, I got it in range of all 3 of them, so it's going to take a triple charge, which even for a tough orc axe horde with axe and shield is going to hurt quite a lot. So that's the first problem. Also raced up these orclings, and that was to try and just get in the way and stop these coming over this way to reinforce, but that didn't do such a good job of doing that, really. I'm also slowed down by this forest, and that's interfering with these gore riders here, but I'm just trying to push through as quickly as I can. So here's the situation over here. Gakamax taking a couple of damage from lightning bolts probably, and the slash has taken 3 points damage from the shield wall. So Gordon's turn. So first mistake, my war drum. No, second mistake. First mistake was moving these up so I could get triple charged like that. They take 10 damage. Ouch. Here's the second mistake. The war drum was in range from one of the winged heroes who could see it, so he went slamming across into that. Only 2 damage. Got lucky, didn't kill it, so that's good. Over here, the pike charge into the front of my slasher, and I can't remember if they did another damage. I think they probably didn't, or did they? No, I think they did. So I'll come to that in a moment and why that's so bad. And here comes the first sacrificial wizards. Firstly, this one here, right in front of my orc horde to slow it down and stop it helping out. That'll delay them for a round while they take care of that wizard. The other wizard over here to stop the ghoul riders. So this is what I mean about these self-sacrificing wizards who are going to slow me down. Yeah. So this pike block. Now in Kings of War, pike, they've got phalanx for a start, so any mounted or flying unit is at -1 and hindered trying to hit them. And then their pikes, they've got Ensnare on top of that, so they're another -1 to hit. So my slasher here, he's got 10 attacks, normally hitting on 3s, we're rolling one of them because he's got the Blade of Slashing, but he's got 10 attacks needing 5s with a reroll. So you're only expecting to get 3 or 4 hits, and I got 4 hits. To wound them, I needed 2s, 4 1s. Awesome. At least Gakamak is getting stuck into the side of them, and I think I managed to wave them anyway. But this is Gordon's really doing the right matchups here. I mean, in the old Warhammer, pikes and spears and things, they really didn't do that much. But in Kings of War, they are, they're really good, like they were historically against cavalry and so on, and also flyers in Kings of War. So, and particularly good in regiments, I think, like this. So, if you're using cavalry and flyers, for goodness sake, try and avoid getting them stuck in the front of a pike block. You'll be there forever. So, end of my turn, we did actually waver the pike block. Gordon's just taken off the front rank, couple ranks there, so my slasher can fit in. And that was wavered thanks to Gakamak attacking them in the side. No thanks to the slasher or the cavalry. These ghoul riders kill the wizard, but that delayed them another turn. I think we also we did some damage to this fanatic unit. It had charged the ghoul riders, and fortunately didn't do too much. So turn 3. Orc horde, the only thing that can charge because of the charge arcs and so on is the pike block in the centre, and they do virtually nothing, like 2 points or something. So they're doomed. This orc horde takes out the wizard and overruns to get it out of the charge arc of this hero. Unfortunately, that actually means they have now, because of the position they've ended up in, they ran a bit too far. They're in a position where they can get flank charged by this fanatic unit if it disengages, which is what will happen. Crush and War Drum attack that hero, don't kill it though. So yes, and here's Gordon's turn, so 2 units into there, plus another hero who's arrived, so they're gone. The War Drum's taken out by that hero. And the flank attack there does about 10 or 12 damage into the side of this horde and wavers them. The hero that was here being hit by the crusher, that flies off over here and slams into the side of these ghoul riders along with fanatics and kills them off. And at this stage I'm thinking, oh no, I've really messed this up quite badly. I have my centre's just falling to pieces and is about to be wiped out, and even over here it's not going so well. We're stuck in front of some pike and just not making much progress, and Gordon might be in a position to do it. So we eventually get through that pike block with the assistance of Gakamak attacking it again, and because he had wavered it, it meant that the Slasher could actually fly off, and he managed to take out the fanatics, and he turns to face both the pike block and this hero. So we've formed a bit of a line there now, and we've got on top of it, but it's been very costly and slow. And meanwhile, as you can see, my centre is just gone. They're on, what are they on? 13 damage. Got a Crudger attacking there. Yeah, and there's the Crusher about to go down heroically. So, Gordon's turn. So he chucks the pikes into the slasher once again to really mess it up and slow it down. These two units charge in and kill off my other orc horde. He finishes off the crusher. I think, yeah, the other winged hero turns around and kills off the orclings. And all that's left in the centre now is my crudger with the banner. My skulks had decided to give up on the centre and wisely skulk off in this direction. And here's a moment which brought me a little joy. I mean, skulks, they tend to get a bit of a bad reputation from most orc generals. I don't think they're commonly used, but I just like them. They're the sort of units that can do a range of things, none of them very well. But they're just sneaky and, like their name implies, can sometimes do some dastardly things. And here, most people just ignore their shooting, but I managed to shoot and waver that general there, take him out of action for a round, so I was quite pleased with that. And according to the background, skulks are at the bottom of the kind of hierarchy in Orc society, looked down upon by all the rest of the Orcs because they do this sort of thing rather than just getting there with axes and so on. So with a little bit of assistance of an arrow in the back, the skulks actually managed, together with Gakamak, to take out that hero. We eventually get through the other pike block and come through to here. And I think this was turn 6 by this stage. So I think eventually Gordon did take out that Crudger, and he's holding clearly the centres, both centres, and I think he had one of the other sectors too. And he spent quite some time agonising over where he was going to put his units to try and get the most points. Before he thought, oh, I don't care, it doesn't matter that much, they're going to get a few points. Rolled turn 7, and it didn't, so that was the end of the game. So that was a win to Gordon. I had these two sectors, so I had 2 points. Gordon had 2, 3, 4 points, so a win to Gordon. However, it was not the huge win he needed, and when we came to count up all the points, my Orcs were victorious in winning the tournament. Surprisingly, given how their first games had gone prior to this tournament. So that was good to try them out and learn different things. To go back to this game versus the men, learning points from this. Well, I pointed out some. I moved my Orc horde so it was in range of 3 units to get charged. That was not wise. I had my Orc war drum down here, got exposed early and killed because of it. I could have positioned things better to, as I mentioned, some early things about guarding against flying units to guard against them. And over here, this was just, Gordon did so well in just tying my units up with, a cheap pike block holding up a cavalry and slasher, and just drip feeding things in to slow me down while he wrecked this centre. He got the matchups he wanted, and yeah, you use cheap units to hold up expensive ones. Work to get the flanks on things. So it was a really good effort. Okay, so there we go. That's the end of the game and tournaments. If you can think of anything any of us could have done better, or any mistakes we made and so on, love to hear about it. It's always helpful to learn things. And just to look at the end results then. So in the top 3 places, pretty close together with 4 wins each. It's myself and on 87, Gordon on 82, Eugene on 81, just a point between them. And most sporting went to Jeff this time, so well done, Jeff. So anyway, that was a great fun tournament. Nice clean rules, great bunch of people, some nice models and modelling. A lot of fun, and of course we're going to do it again. And you're very welcome to join us. We're particularly encouraging of new players. So even if you haven't played before, just turn up to a tournament. It's all good. So next events coming up, we have in Oamaru, surprisingly enough, the Oamaru muster, end of July, and then in September I am the TO for No Surrender, and I won't be playing in that one unless needed, just to make up even numbers. All of these games will be played in the same format: 2,000 points, 3 games on the Saturday, 2 games on the Sunday, and Northern Kings scoring, and we'll once again have a meal, a few drinks on the Saturday night, probably, for anyone who's interested. So I'd love to have you along, and thanks for watching, and take care everyone. Thank you.